ठीक है. So, thank you folks for joining in. And today we have another episode of the Instahyre Roundtable. I am glad to have Kushagra amongst us. And let's start off the uh, Instahyre Roundtable. This is a place where ideas and leaders meet. Before we start off, a little bit about our product, our Instahyre, which is a platform which allows companies to find talent with 10x more accuracy and 10x less time. We are trusted by Fortune 100 companies. Quite a lot of them use our product, like Amazon, PayPal, Google, Oracle, Adobe, Airbnb, Gojek, and others. And today we have amongst us Kushagra Pande, who's the director of talent acquisition at Junglee Games. So Kushagra, welcome to the discussion today. And the topic will be Gen Z Conundrum, attracting and engaging the next generation of talent. So, Kushagra, a brief introduction about you for our folks who have joined in.
Sure. First of all, thanks for actually having me here, guys. Yushe has been like a great support in terms of getting me on here, introducing, and I think so. Like Sarvajit did not take our name, but we also use Instahyre, and I think so. The platform has done something. The way we actually look at the talent pipeline. So thanks to the platform as well, the way it has actually helped us in terms of attracting and reaching out to the talent, right? So thanks to the team out there. Introduction, yeah. So I represent and head the talent acquisition at Junglee Games. Have been here for 2 years now. Good journey with the organization. Prior to that, I have worked with Airtel Digital, Groupon, which is more like these two companies have been more from the digital space perspective. Prior to that, I have worked with large SaaS setups, which were actually one in Hyderabad, one in Noida. Started my career in Bangalore, but I have been a wanderer for job. That is how I call myself. I have been roaming around cities. I think so. A couple of them which have not been touched yet. Hopefully, if I get an opportunity in future, I'll certainly like to explore those cities as well. But I think so. Like I've touched most, and I've seen the cultural part changing when you look at the talent attraction while working at different cities in India. So that's a bit about me.
Okay, Kushagra. So we will talk about a lot of things which the new generation, the Gen Z, will be kind of how we can engage them, how we can attract the next generation of talent. And I will start off with my first question, which I have for you. So, in your experience, what aspects of workplace culture resonate mostly, most strongly with the Gen Z community?
Sure, I think so. Before answering that, maybe one thing which maybe I'll like to ask you, Sarvajit. Since morning till now, maybe just let me know in terms of which were out of these three things, which was the platform which you were mostly like looking at? Your Gmail account, your Instagram, and your WhatsApp. Between these three, whom would you like to say in terms of like you have looked at most since morning?
For mine, it will be Gmail. Yes.
Gmail. Okay, yeah. But it changes for Gen Z.
Yeah, right?
Who are here, and Gen Zs primarily, if they're here, they would have certainly looked at Instagram to be first, right? Then WhatsApp, and then Gmail.
And then Snapchat also, maybe.
Absolutely.
Snapchat.
I just took 3 examples. I just don't want to actually take too many names out there, but I think so. Like that's where the connection actually happens with this generation, right? So, how do you have your strategies evolving in terms of that? First, now answering back to the question that you actually asked. How do you actually have your evolving strategies in terms of technology integration, right? How you can actually have more tech-savvy, like primarily the technology initiatives, which can actually leverage the overall workplace, making like the Gen Z more comfortable in terms of digital collaboration, using innovative technologies to enhance productivity. I think so. That is the first thing that the Gen Z actually really appreciates back on. Apart from that, I feel like what we have seen in terms of, I think so this term has been there in the industry. How value organizations give it to, it depends on brand to brand, industry to industry. That's diversity and inclusion. But Gen Z looks towards diversity and inclusivity very strongly in terms of they appreciate the environment that celebrate differences. And provide like where an organization provides an equal opportunity regardless of people's background, gender, ethnicity, and any other characteristics which people bring on the board. So I think so that's the second thing that is driving Gen Z in terms of while they're actually looking at the brands that they really want to work with. Flexibility and work-life balance, definitely, I think so. That has been like one of the buzzwords for this generation. COVID had made a lot of learnings for a lot of organization in terms of that there has to be flexibility, whether it was totally remote during the COVID time, or now it has been evolving into a more of a hybrid workplace in terms of how you can actually have a more healthy work-life balance for people. It's like more about in terms of providing options to actually work from anywhere, flexible work schedules, having like primarily recognizing people to have their personal time off with their families. I think so that is what it is being looked at. Transparency in communication, I think so this is one thing which Gen Z like appreciates the most. Honesty and authenticity, that's what we have been observing with people who actually come from this generation, and they have been likely to more engage with the organization that communicate very clearly about their values, goals, and expectations. And then I think so like one thing which like I think so this is what I have been seeing with this generation is in terms of that having that entrepreneurial spirit, right? In terms of that when you give them the flexibility in terms of owning things, having an ownership mindset, letting them do things, fail fast approach, those sort of things, I think so they appreciate that, where they see in terms of that one, they can try new things. Failure is absolutely okay, but learn from those failures and grow, and can heavily contribute back to the organization. And having that like that's owner's mindset, as to what I was saying.
Great. So we talked about technology and technology. How are we, like, how have you also leveraged technology in unique ways to attract this Gen Z candidates amongst us? So being a company which is, I think the context of your company will be a pretty young crowd will be there, because gaming and stuff like that requires a lot of people who are into the newest form. Like you'll be dealing with a lot of folks who are into this. So a very good question from all of us to you. So how do you leverage technology to attract this kind of, and technology and Gen Z and gaming is like a very good mixture, so to speak. So what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, sure. So yeah, I think so like first in our organization, I think so the average age of employees is anything around like a 27, 28. That itself is a very young organization. The leadership clan itself is like at an average of around 30, 36, 37. So we have like, and I'm not only referring back to the current organization and previous organizations as well, in terms of we have tried to actually look at a couple of things which again like resonates back to this generation, which is more about in terms of very strategically using your social media, right? The way we were speaking, right? In terms of that, how Instagram, WhatsApp, LinkedIn, right? TikTok, which was at one point in time like quite prevalent now with the bans, how it can actually help in terms of promoting your organizations, right? Which is more about in terms of can you have employee stories? Can you highlight company culture, which primarily gives a glimpse of what it is like to work at your company, right? So primarily the behind the scene context that you can actually get down to those social media platforms. And primarily also like it's this is one thing which we actually talk a lot with the leadership clan as well, in terms of how do you really engage the followers, right? Responding back to their comments, participating in trending challenges to show that the company has a dynamic and a relatable side back to the people who are showing interest back to your brand. Apart from that, I think so gamification is something which has always been spoken about. Various aspects while you are recruiting, while you are engaging the talent, once the talent is actually on board, that actually gives a lot of, I'll say, confidence back to the generation in terms of being connected. I think so like there are various platforms in the market where primarily leaderboards can actually be created, and then there can certainly be in terms of an engagement which can actually be run through and making it more rewarding, so that like this generation can actually look at that part. Showcasing tech innovation, I think so that is what I've already spoken about in terms of how do you leverage technology and having a lot of personalized digital experience, right? AI has been in the market, right? So how do you use that in terms of preferences of people? Also, like chatbots, smart chatbots, which can actually have real-time interaction with people, right? So that attracts primarily this generation and actually helps in terms of looking at this talent in terms of how unique an organization is looking at in terms of attracting.
Okay. Okay. My next question will be, Kushagra, you have worked with Gen Z and other generations. So, any kind of like creative tactic which you have used for like smooth collaboration between these different generations in your workplace, and across, like you will have different teams with different age groups, and also this talent which you might be hiring, which will be quite young, because in the gaming industry everything changes very fast, like
Yeah,
and then you will be hiring a lot of folks who might be in their teens versus people who might be in their 30s or 40s or
correct.
late 30s. So there, how do you think like there should be a smooth collaboration? What is the tactics or which you have used? So a very curious question from all of us.
Sure. So yeah, I think so. Like I'm not sure if I've worked with any of the baby boomers. Maybe in my previous organization where the organization was much more mature, but certainly millennials, and now with a lot of Gen Zs. I think so. One thing which has primarily worked out very well is in terms of having shared goals. This is where, in terms of where you clearly align or outline those goals, which are equally responsible for the generations which are actually working together, and there is a cohesiveness which can actually be built. Otherwise, like if you have people working in certain clans, then there would be certainly disjointed groups which will never be really looking forward towards the one goal of the organization which is there, right? Open communication channels, I think so. That's something which we promote a lot in most of the organizations. If you look at a lot of e-commerce players, digital organizations, they actually create those platforms or channels where teams share their thoughts, ask questions, provide feedback without any fear of judgment. I think so. That is what is very, very key back. Recognition and appreciation. I think so. Like both younger and older team members, when we talk about people who are in 40s and people who are in 20s or in 30s, like they actually look out for in terms of that how they can be appreciated. I myself, like I've learned it from my previous leaders in terms of that in your regular team meetings, how do you really do shout outs, right? How do you really recognize people, right? I think so that becomes a core value or maybe a core culture that can actually help your team actually be more cohesive, working together regardless of the generation that they actually represent. I was actually reading through an article very recently in terms of we have always heard about mentoring, right? The usual mentoring has been in terms of where there is a senior and then there is a junior, right? The junior is always mentored by the senior. But then there is a concept which is now coming up in the market. I'm not sure how many companies are actually trying it. We are not trying, to be very frank, but I've read about it. Very interesting. It's called reverse mentoring, right? Where primarily Gen Zs are actually trying to mentor people and trying to actually bring them up to speed in terms of what can be primarily the innovative ways in terms of having a culture which can actually promote a lot of that Gen Z feeling, right? Um, and I think so. Like in my current organization, we have those sort of groups where the Gen Zs are much more active in terms of providing inputs and thoughts. A lot of CEOs in a lot of digital companies, they always promote people who come from campuses or who are very young in their career in terms of talking about those innovative ways in which the company can actually think through. Because like maybe give an example in recruitment, maybe I have been thinking the way the best it has been done in the past, but a very young person in my team can actually think of something very innovative, right? So always promote that. I think so. It's more about in terms of that how do you really get people, everyone actually contributing back towards one goal, right? And having a shared responsibility. That's the core.
Okay. Okay. So, with that, we come to the section of the audience questions which we have for you. So, we got a lot of audience questions. We filtered a couple of them, and I will send you the other bunch to you. The first question comes for smaller companies. What innovative, yes, resource efficient methods work best to draw and attract Gen Z talent? So this is a question for you, which came.
Sure, perfect. I think so. Like most of the companies would be doing and practicing, and post COVID, I think so. It has been more evident in terms of having a flexible work arrangement, a
Yeah.
healthy work-life balance, which maybe at times provides opportunities which are maybe work from anywhere,
Mm.
and giving them the flexibility. One, and actually tying it back in terms of how productive they can be. Right. That's the core. Digital presence, as to what I was just speaking previously in terms of how your strong presence can be through social media platforms. LinkedIn, I think so. This is one like professional source in which you can actually go down and actually talk a lot about the organization, showcasing the company culture. Instagram is another. Twitter, that primarily helps in terms of being more digitally present. Also, having like primarily professional development opportunities for your team members in terms of identify and like not one size fits all sort of a thing might not work out here. You may have to actually craft strategies around in terms of how a Gen Z compared to a millennial or maybe to a baby boomer, your professional development opportunities can be different for a different set of individuals, and what actually motivates individual to individuals, right? Always talk about how diverse and inclusive culture that you have and how do you really promote it, right? And then I think so like the one thing which I was speaking in the past as well in terms of having that transparent communication, I think so that's the most cost effective way in which you can actually have people attracted towards you in terms of that. It depends. It starts with the leadership team in terms of what they speak, and it transforms in terms of what they do. Right? We talk about that a lot in terms of leaders, like the walk the talk thing, which the leaders actually do. That transform back in terms of how openly you are communicating, and then how it's actually transforming back into your actions as well.
Okay. Also, Kushagra, for smaller companies, I think leadership plays a very important role because these are like small bunch of like people who are working to solve a problem. So
Correct.
this new talent, which is Gen Z talent, or young folks who are mostly attracted to the problem they're solving, and how you can articulate the problem, the founder or the leader or the senior folks can the best. Like, I think leadership also plays a role in also getting more kind of social media following. People want to
Absolutely.
work for that person. And what do you think on this? Like the image of the founder is also.
Yeah, no, I think so. Like in a lot of my previous organizations,
Mm.
there was a lot of sponsorship which came from the leaders in terms of that, uh,
Mhm.
how they can start connecting with the talent right at maybe the start of the process, maybe not directly, but having some sort of like
Mm.
video footage talking about how do they really value talent in the organization, right?
Mm.
And especially young talent, what impact they see for a Gen Z talent coming in and making a difference back. That starts from there, and then once the talent is actually onboarded, how do you really celebrate maybe those people who are actually making positive dents back in the organization for the growth, right? That is also like something which leaders do. From a social perspective, I think so there are a lot of initiatives which branding teams, HR teams, recruitment teams actually do in terms of promoting your leaders' profile and how they value talent in the organization or in their teams, right? So talking about that through social platforms, uh, and how has been their experience in the organization. I think so that adds a lot of value. So I think so sponsorship from the leadership is very, very core, and it can't be done like in siloed in terms of that there is a recruitment team, branding team, HR team which is actually promoting, but leaders are not like bite into it. I think so it has always to be a top down approach.
Okay, understood. So I have the next question for you from the audience. What are some effective, simple methods and techniques to harmonize different generation expectations within a team? Different generational expectations. Yes.
Sure. So I think so. It's more about in terms of open communication.
Yeah.
Where team members share their expectation, values, and work preferences. Also build an understanding in terms of like a lot of companies actually conduct a lot of workshops, training sessions, but how effective they are in terms of measuring primarily the effectiveness outside of it, and also educating the team members about the generation differences and the strengths that every individual brings in to the organization, which primarily also talks about in terms of having that or fostering that empathy sort of a culture in the organization, talking about the experiences and the perspectives that different generations have. I spoke about this, having common goals. I think so that gives a lot of, I'll say, a thought process back to everyone that we are trying to actually working around one achievement towards, and then there's nothing in terms of that I need to do or you need to do, right? It's about in terms of how we both can actually solve it together. And then like, certainly in terms of like how can you bring the teams more closely in terms of team building activities. Even like during COVID time, there were a lot of like things which companies did in terms of while people are working at home, uh, getting into their rooms where they're working or the workstations that they're working, how can they still be very closely connected to their teams, right? But now companies going into a hybrid or maybe a more full-fledged office-driven culture, it's more about in terms of bringing people together, having those team building offsites, workshops, team lunches, of like offsite retreats. That also brings a lot of, I'd say, harmony between different generations. Inclusivity, I think so. This is what I was talking about from a DEI perspective. Inclusivity is in terms of that how do you have people inclusively involved in decision making, right? Which means input from all team members, regardless of generation, right? That brings a lot of value back. And then certainly in terms of feedback mechanism, where team members can provide inputs on how we can improvise on collaboration, communication, and also in terms of regularly you do check-ins and review your strategies and keep on like modulating them basis the feedback received.
Okay. So, Kushagra, we come to the next section, which is uh, focus on the candidate or the job seeker, which is we call it as job flex. And the question for job flex is this is for the candidates. So, your advice for the candidates. So, what are the top skills or attributes that Gen Z candidates often undervalue on their resume but are highly sought after by employers?
Sure. So, one page series, which is absolutely okay. I don't have any, but what are you showcasing in that one page is very, very critical, right? At times, people write a lot of fancy things in terms of that. I'm very flexible. I'm critical thinker, and then people talk about their communication skills and other things. But can you really translate it back with examples back, right? I think so. What modern employers or maybe forward-thinking employers are looking for key things in your CVs in terms of when we talk about flexibility, we also talk about adaptability, right? So can you showcase it with instances where you have navigated change, right? Whether you were learning a technology or a tool, or there was an unexpected challenge which came to you in the project that you were working in. Can you actually give examples back to it in your CV, right? So that once the person actually reads through it, gets a confidence back, rather than just writing that I'm adaptable and flexible. From critical thinking perspective, in terms of, again, provide examples in terms of when was the last time that you were able to identify a problem, analyze it, or like root cause, and then provide a successful solution, right? And then while you're interacting during the discussions, talk about that more intense in terms of that what was the situation all about, right? I think so. One thing which a lot of employer actually focuses now back on is more about emotional intelligence, right? Which means in terms of how effectively you have resolved conflicts, right, and demonstrated empathy, right? That's one thing like most of the organizations or the employers are actually looking at this point in time. People get confused with communication skills, right? Can I speak fluently? Is that what communication skills mean? No. It means in terms of have you ever been in a complex situation where you have communicated a complex information very clearly, right? Maybe whether you were presenting it through PPTs, you were providing reports, or you were doing some interpersonal interactions, right? So how your communication has made that impact back. And also in terms of like what employers nowadays look for a lot of them, and I think so. Like at my current organization, also we have one of that as a value in terms of that how you can look at data in terms of driving decisions, right? So it's more about in terms of uh, are you like data literate, like data literacy, which is more about in terms of can you look at the data, slice, dice it, draw inferences out of it, and then draw KPIs which can actually help you drive towards a success. That's what we look for, and I think so. This is what I was actually talking about in terms of what Gen Z looks for. They look for in terms of where they can actually have an entrepreneur uh, like impact back in the organization. That's what the employer also looks for in terms of that. Do you have a leadership potential? Leadership is not always about leading people, right? Do you have a leadership potential in terms of leading a project, right? Demonstrated leadership in terms of when you are in a team meeting, how you can drive a discussion, right? How you can actually showcase it back so that people can actually be influenced by your thought processes, right? I think the last but not the least, I think so it's more about in terms of how an individual is like really keenly looking towards the continuous learning and growth, which is like something which the organization can certainly provide in terms of relevant courses. But are there any things that on your own have you gone ahead and actually learned through, which was certainly needed because like there were areas that you were identifying for yourself and then trying to actually have a self-directed learning initiative which you took to enhance your skills?
Okay. Okay. Great. So I think we have gone through all the questions, and right now is a fun section which we have created with the rapid fire round, and I
Okay.
will ask you some questions about you. So let me know when if you are ready for the rapid fire. I will start it off.
Sure.
So
I hope that too much fire doesn't come across my way. Go ahead.
okay, okay. Let's start it off then. So desert island pick smartphone or book?
Repeat that again.
Desert island pick smartphone or book?
I'll say smartphone.
Okay. In the office, are you an inspirational leader or a go-to problem solver?
A go-to problem solver.
Okay. Career advice: risk it all or play it safe?
Risk it all.
Okay. About vacations: beach paradise or snowy mountains?
Oh, both, I'll say. But if I have to do one, I'll say certainly beach paradise. I am an altitude freak. So, like, freak means I can't go to too much altitudes, but I love mountains.
Okay. 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 One wish: infinite budget or time travel?
Time travel, I think so. That's core to me.
Okay.
I wish to
And
solve.
okay. And what the last question is: what is your hidden talent? Any superpower which you have, or like
Oh
you
yeah,
want?
so I think so. In my introduction, I left it. That's what the fun I actually make when I introduce myself is in terms of cut a vein in my blood, and you will have talent acquisition flowing with coming out of the blood. So that's my super talent.
Great. So with that, we come to the end of the session, and it was great having you, Kushagra. And for
Mhm.
all our folks who have joined in, it was a great session, very good insights, and we have broadcasted it, and we'll send it across to all of the folks who have registered but could not join due to some issues, and to all our community. Thank you, Kushagra, for taking time off your busy schedule and joining us for the Instahyre roundtable.
Thank you,
Uh,
sir. Wishing you all a very happy new year, and thanks for joining in, guys.
Thank you so much, Kushagra. Take care. Have fun. Happy New Year.
Bye.